Hi guys, thanks for tuning in to another video on ForgottenWeapons.com. I'm Ian. I am here today at the Rock Island Auction House, and I am taking a look at some of the guns that they're selling in their upcoming February of 2016 regional auction. And I know you wouldn't normally expect to see something like a kind of normal looking double barrel shotgun on this particular channel, but these are a little bit different, and I thought this would be a good opportunity to take a look at these. Now, when you think about antique American double-barreled shotguns, the names that come to mind are typically things like Parker or Ithaca, not Colt. In fact, Colt's long guns, up until fairly recent times, have really all kind of gotten short shrift. Colt had the Lightning rifles that were never all that popular. They had the Colt Burgess rifle that they canceled very quickly. No one really pays that much attention to Colt's long guns. Well, they actually played a significant part in the expansion of the US in the Old West era. And I thought it'd be cool to take a look at the two guns that Colt offered during that time period. So what I have here in front is an 1878 pattern Colt side-by-side shotgun. And here in the back is a Colt 1883 pattern. Now, there's some interesting backstory to these as well. So the deal is, in 1878, Colt came out with this hammered double-barrel shotgun. They offered it in both 10 gauge and 12 gauge, and you could get your choice of barrel length, but typically you're looking at like 28, 30, 32 inches for the barrel. The short-barreled coach guns that everybody thinks of for 1870s period shotguns, that was actually kind of a niche thing. If you had a shotgun, you wouldn't just randomly go and chop the barrels down to make them handier, because these are all using black powder, and black powder really does depend on barrel length for velocity. So not only by chopping the gun down, not only are you significantly reducing velocity, you're also increasing your pattern size at long range, and the vast majority of these guns were used for actual hunting and self-sustaining rather than as coach-style guns or self-protection under the coat sort of guns. A double-barreled shotgun like this is, especially at this time period, really kind of a do-it-all sort of gun. You could load it with buckshot, birdshot. It could be used against a home invader. It could be used to get food. You name it. It was a universal sort of gun. So what's interesting about the ones that Colt made is that they were deliberately at the very high end of the market. They competed very closely against Parker guns, and they were expensive. Price for one of these 1878s at the time when they were being made, which by the way was 1878 to 1889, these were in production, price on one of those would be $50 to $85, depending on the quality that you wanted. They were offered in several different grades of fineness of metal and wood finish. So that was kind of expensive. That said, it was an extremely popular gun. They sold very well. Colt ended up selling almost 23,000 of them, which was more than any shotgun it had manufactured to that time. And for a high-end American gun at that period, that's not half bad. In fact, it was good enough that Colt continued to work on the design, and in 1883 they released this version, which is a hammerless gun. So a lot sleeker, a lot slimmer, definitely higher tech at the time. And the 1883s here were, if anything, even higher quality than the 1878s. In fact, they were probably too high of a quality if Colt was looking to attract a large market. The later hammerless guns, they only sold about 7,400 of those. Those were like $85 starting price, and if you wanted to, it wasn't hard to drop $300 on one of these shotguns. And in the 1880s, $300 is a lot of money. Gold was $20 an ounce, so that's 15 ounces of gold. A $300 shotgun in the 1880s, that's not difficult to be a $10,000 or $20,000 shotgun today, for example. So, like I said, not a whole lot of them made. There were some very high-end ones made. You could order custom guns in all sorts of different configurations. President Cleveland ordered 2 of the 1883s. His have his name inlaid in gold in the trigger guard, and they are actually 8-gauge guns, which was definitely a special order item. Apparently he liked very large bore for bird hunting. So Colt had brought out this 1878 hammered shotgun in 1878, and it was selling quite well. And the Winchester company were making rifles. They thought that would be a good market to get into, and they probably looked at it and realized there was a lot of opportunity to create a more economic shotgun and grab a big market share from Colt. And so what they did is they actually started importing shotguns from Birmingham, England, where they were being made at much lower cost. And they weren't necessarily bad guns, but they were definitely lower end shotguns. They weren't striving for the same really top-notch quality that Colt did. So Winchester starts bringing these guns in 1880, and Colt notices and isn't pleased with it. And Colt's response is to go visit a guy named Andrew Burgess and buy rights to a couple of his patents. And Colt started to manufacture lever-action rifles directly to compete with Winchester. This was the Colt Burgess, which ultimately went into production in 1883. Winchester got wind of that development, and Winchester wasn't happy about that. And so in continued retribution, Winchester went and started importing double-action Webley revolvers from England along with their shotguns. The idea there was for these Webleys to compete directly with Colt's double-action Frontier pistols. And this was kind of escalating back and forth and would not going to lead to any good result for either company. Ultimately, the executives from the two companies got together and hammered out what came to be kind of one of the iconic, slightly shady backroom deals of industrial history, wherein Winchester agreed that they would stop developing revolvers, stop importing revolvers, and they would make no attempt to sell revolvers, and Colt agreed that they would get out of the lever-action rifle business, and the two companies would basically leave each other's main markets alone. And that's exactly what happened. Colt dropped the Colt Burgess lever-action, never went back into that market. They had the Lightning pump-action rifles, but those were never hugely popular anyway. And Winchester got out of the revolver business and never did get into handguns in any significant way. So a lot of this traces directly back to this 1878 pattern shotgun, which I think is pretty interesting. You know, a lot of people don't recognize Colt shotguns like this. Even Colt collectors often don't pay all that much attention to them. And maybe that's an area where there's an opportunity for someone who's interested to get something with some really cool historical provenance that just isn't widely appreciated. So ultimately, the hammered guns were made from 1878 until 1889. The hammerless guns were made from 1883 until 1895. By that point, slide action shotguns it was pretty clear were going to become the thing. Sales were slow enough of these guns that it just wasn't worthwhile for Colt to continue marketing them. So Colt dropped these and expanded into other markets, and the rest is history. Thanks for watching, guys. Hope you enjoyed the video. If you would like to get either of these guns for yourself, take a look at the description text below. I have links there to both of the lots that these guns are in. And there are, in fact, several other examples of both of these pattern guns in this particular auction. So if you're interested, you can poke through the catalog and find those other examples, and you can actually place bids on any or all of them directly through the catalog webpage. Thanks for watching.